What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
You don't know what that order is, Mr. Trash. I'd show you, but I'm too old. I'm too tired. I'm too fucking blind. If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
We've said it once, we've said it twice, we've said it a million times. The truth shall always set you free. This is Tim Skin Off My Lawn, the Mad Ramblings of a Gen Xer. Want to talk about a lot of things today. Want to talk about Obamacare and the soaring prices in reference to premiums and increases of healthcare since that debacle of a law that was passed back in the Obama era. Want to talk about space aliens from the sea. That sounds like a bad horror movie. Also want to talk about a really bad horror movie I just saw the other day called Primitive War. Oh, dear Lord. Also want to talk about the No Kings. What do we want? No Kings. When do we want it? Now. Okay, well, you got it. So you can stop fucking protesting. I've always shown, and I've always kind of pointed out recently, that if you take a look at the demographic of the No Kings protests, it's kind of weird because all I really see and all you see the people really talk to outside of the nuts that are the Antifa idiots that I'm going to wear all black and cry for anarchy. But then if I get arrested, I'm going to go cry to mommy. But if you take a look at the crowd itself, and I keep saying this, it's older white women. White women in their 40s. And I love it because they did a study. They went out and they somehow, I don't know, somehow they looked at all this, looked at the demographics, and I guess they did a couple surveys. But it's one of these things that you look at it, and yes, they're saying that the majority of the protesters are educated white women in their late 40s. It's almost like it's a therapy for them. I am an empty nester. What do you want? No Kings. When do we want it? No. But to me, it seems like they're just a bunch of empty nesters that have nothing better to fucking do. They talk about the thousands of the peoples that were drawn to these protests. There was 7 million worldwide, and I think there's a lot more than 7 million people in the world. Axios was the first to report this. Then the American University also tracked the protests and also started tracking the demographics. And they're seeing the same thing. It's just older white women. And to me, like I said, it's a segment of the community that's just craving attention. They're kind of lost. And when you go out and you listen to them speak, it's the idiocy of their thought process that really shocks you because these are supposed to be educated women. It's like, and I love it because it's always the same thing. Well, Donald Trump is a king. Okay, what has he done that makes him a king? Well, there's so many things he has done. Okay, name one of them. There's too many to name. Okay, well, just give me one example. You're gaslighting me. No, I'm not gaslighting. I'm asking you to give me an example of one thing that he's done as a king. There's just so numerous. You need to educate yourself. And then they get mad and walk away. Now, some of these protesters, during some of these interviews I talked to them, they equate the No Kings movement with the civil rights movement. This is how delirious. I love it because it's all old white women. This is the civil rights movement for old white women. What do we want? Menopause. When do we want it? Now. They just seem to be so unhappy in their lives. That's the only thing I can think of. They're so unhappy in their life. They're so unhappy with their husband, maybe with their children, maybe with their career choices, maybe just with the direction of their lives, that they go out there and they just make up these idiot statements. It's like they just want to be involved in something. I like one of the protesters say, they want us to be violent. That was Claudia Schultz. And she at the time was wearing an inflatable pig costume. You can't get anywhere unless there's violence. Well, I thought the civil rights movement was, a non-violent movement. I didn't grow up in the 60s. I wasn't born until the late and early 70s, but I thought it was a non-violent movement. I'm just throwing that out there. But I'm telling you, these protesters are something. They are literally something else. So the lockdown is continuing. The rhetoric from the left is just getting more and more crazy. This lockdown, if you really want to spell it out, is really that the Democrats are trying to hold the entire country hostage over these subsidies, or over these, whatever you want to refer to them as, that were included in the last Biden bill in reference to the American Rescue Act, where we gave out subsidies for healthcare. These were supposed to be temporary subsidies, but now they want to make them basically permanent, and they're fighting for legislation and a lockout. That's what I don't understand these. And there are segments people will tell you the same thing. There's nothing in these segments that says that illegal immigrants can get health care. Well, no, that's not right, because there's basically in the entire section basically stating that illegal immigrants, if they go to a hospital, which is why our emergency rooms were flooded during the heyday of the Biden era, because of the fact that they would basically get free health care if they went to a hospital. So the emergency rooms were flooded for extended periods of time. There was points in times you could, during the highlight of the Biden administration, you could not even go to an emergency room. It was not possible because it was so packed. I remember once having to take my wife there, and it was so filled. I even told her, and wasn't trying to be racist, I even told her, I really think and I really feel that I am in a third world country because nobody here speaks any English. And no one wants to talk about Health Provision 7-8, Section 2141, which is part of their Democrats' continuing resolution, which basically says that we have to, basically it proposes to repeal Medicare and other healthcare spending reductions from 2025's budget reconciliation, which basically is going to save us like $1.1 trillion over 10 years. And they want to repeal that. They want to take that was something that was passed into law, a bill that was passed into law, and repeal it by going out there and holding the government hostage. The resolution will permanently extend the enhanced tax credits in the Affordable Care Act. So basically, they want to re-add back $1.1 trillion onto the deficit. These were not meant to be permanent. These were not meant to sit there and say, okay, we need to have this every single day. No, this was supposed to be an aid to those suffering during the lockdowns of the pandemic. But now they want to take these and say, oh, okay, we want to make this shit permanent. And we want to make sure that, and I love it because you ask a Democrat, so you're saying that you want illegal immigrants to have health care. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying it is humane for all humans to have health care. And I love how they phrase that. I love how they phrase it. And I also love it. They also want to extend some types of healthcare programs to of course they say to minorities, but then they also basically are also talking about the fact that they just basically want to give healthcare to everyone. They want to take something that we had already passed as a law, and they want to repeal it by holding the government hostage. And yes, this is about healthcare for illegal immigrants. Let's just spell it out. We don't want to spell it out, because we are heading towards, in certain segments of this country, into a socialist agenda. You got the Zohan in New York. The Zohan has dual. I love this because everyone loves the young crowd loves him. He's got dual citizenship. The Zohan, not New York, the United States and Uganda. And I love it because Uganda, there is a law where you're allowed to kill homosexuals. So the champion of the underclass, the champion of the homosexual population, the LGBTQ14 to the 19th power community, has dual citizenships in a country where killing a homosexual is legal in Uganda. Do you think that he has renounced his citizenship of Uganda? No. This is a guy that's never worked. I loved it because during the debates, they said he has a napkin resume, which is true. He worked for mommy. He's done nothing else. He's rich, but he's going to come in here and he's going to give you all these free things by taxing the wealthy. I'm going to add 2% more onto the people that are already paying more than 50% of their wages in taxes to the state of New York. And then if you do business in the state of New York, you don't have to corporate headquarters, I'm going to tax you. So the governor, Kelly Holcomb, says, whoa, dude, slow your fucking roll. You can't do these things. She basically came out and said she's not going to allow this to happen. You can't do these things. But don't worry, he's going to go forward with it. He's the mayor of New York, so he's going to do all these things that he needs to be passed over in Albany. But don't worry, he's going to have free grocery store. And I love it because the free busing. What we need to have? We need to have free busing. Okay, how much does free busing cost a year? Only $700 million to $1 billion a year. So New York, who is running at a deficit, budget deficit, by like $1 billion. And Trump already says, I'm not fucking bailing you out, dude. He's told Holcomb, I'm not bailing you out if you do this stupid shit. So the company, we're running at a deficit. And I love it because of the fact that when you take a look at this, it's like, well, it's only going to cost $700 million to $1 billion a year to run the free buses. But it's going to be better for the general citizen because we're taxing the rich. The rich, have I made any money? Like most people have done already in New York, you leave. You go to Florida, you go to Texas, you go to place with no state income tax. And to think that you're going to tax this is not just socialism, this is communism. The fact that you are just going to tax people for doing business in the state of New York is such lunacy. And I love it because it's no longer about paying for the liberal left for years. It's always, you have to pay your fair share. Pay your fair share. It's no longer about that. Now just taxing the wealthy. Because I always bring up the fact that almost 48% of this country does not pay income tax, does not pay federal tax. They get money back. And it was something, I forget what it was. It's something, I have to look up the percentage for the next pod, but it was something like 8% of the entire country pays like 70% of the entire country's tax bill. But don't worry, like 48% of the country, they get a refund. They don't pay taxes. They basically don't pay taxes. But you middle-class Americans, you dummies, you upper middle-class Americans, you morons, you need to pay more share. You need to pay more. Because you know what's going to happen if you tax these millionaires or these alleged millionaires or these companies? They're just going to pass on the increase to the consumer. But don't worry, you know what we're going to have? We're going to have government-run grocery stores. It worked well in Detroit. Worked well in the former Soviet Union. I want Yankee blue jeans. Worked well in Venezuela. And I always love it. You ask people, where has socialism worked? And they point out China. That's not socialism, that's communism. Vietnam, again, that's not socialism, that's communism. Figure that shit out. I also want to get two things I want to get to. I want to get to Aliens in the Sea, but I got to talk about this movie I saw the other day. It's called Primitive Wars. It's a action horror sci-fi movie that came over from Australia. Jeremy Pivens from PCU and the Entourage fame is in this flick. And I got to tell you this. You see the trailer, you see the preview, and you're like, okay, this shit looks pretty good. And I was hanging out with one of my kids, and we were like, hey, let's watch a movie. And he's like, oh, let's do dinosaurs. I said, great. I said, we can learn about Vietnam and learn about dinosaurs all at the same time. So I spend the $9.99 rental fee on iTunes, and the first 5 minutes of the movie, it's actually pretty good. the CGI was pretty good. Now, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but it was also shot completely in the fucking dark. And I'm watching this flick and I'm watching this movie. I'm like, all right, this isn't bad. But then there's a scene where they have this giant feather. So evidently there is a killer ostrich dinosaur. I'm going to say that slowly again. A killer ostrich dinosaur. So as the movie progresses, though, the acting is horrid. There is no sustainable plot, and they just kind of skip over things. But all of a sudden, you get about 30 minutes into the movie, and you're watching the movie, and the dinosaurs start shifting. You're looking at them, and you're like, okay, the CGI is getting slightly worse. And then and this is a 2-hour and 7-minute movie, like 40 minutes into the movie, you are like, okay, this is probably, now there are different levels of CGI and different levels of film in my mind. You have like the Jurassic Park. The beginning of this movie was below Jurassic Park. And then you have Asylum Films, which puts out all the, Death Meteor stories, Earth 1597, the Heat Wave, they put out all those fucking films and all the horror films. So then to me, there's CGI below Asylum. So when this started out the movie, it was below Jurassic Park, but above Asylum. By 40 minutes into the movie, it was like 4 levels of shit below Asylum Films. There was a CGI scene where all the dinosaurs are congregating together with elephants. And I looked at the elephant and I said, that is probably the worst fucking CGI elephant I've seen in the history of my life. You couldn't rent an elephant for an hour? Then literally, it's like somebody drew a dinosaur on a piece of paper. And you have the people run, we're trying to get away from the dinosaurs. It's like, oh no, it's a dinosaur. And then all of a sudden, it's like someone just went across the screen with this piece of paper and went, raw. That's literally how bad the CGI was. It's like someone just took a hand-drawn dinosaur, forgot the sound effects, and someone from the boom mic crew just went, raw. And then you get to the end of the movie. So then the CGI picks up. So evidently they had money from the beginning of the movie and they had money for the end of the movie. So the CGI picks up again. And it was okay. And then there's this climactic scene when they're battling the dinosaurs and they're surrounded by their helicopters. Now, first of all, at some points in time they had real helicopters and you could see that. And then when the CGI helicopter rolled around, you're like, oh dear Lord. Again, could you not spend $1.50 and rent the helicopter for another hour? So they're fighting the dinosaurs around these alligators. Jeremy Pivens is going out like a boss. He didn't. I'm not gonna say if he died or didn't die, but he's fighting like a boss. And then all of a sudden, now these dinosaurs are gonna take over and rule the world and kill everyone. All of a sudden, they just kind of get in the helicopters and leave. And you're sitting there and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? They're just talking about the dinosaurs are going to do this and take over the world. And they have to stop them. And it's like, all right, we're done. We're leaving. Maybe it's for a sequel. I've already talked to my friend and I. We're gonna write what we are going to refer to as PW2. That's Primal War 2. Jeremy Pivens. It was Jeremy Pivens. The whole thing with Jeremy Pivens was a cock tease. He was in it for I've said this before. He was like Charlton Heston in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. He was in it for the first 3 minutes and then he was gone. And then he came back for the last 3 minutes. And you could basically tell that. Now listen, Mike, the older actor, Michael Caine, Jaws 4 fame, I like to refer to it, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, some terrible movies in the 70s and the 80s. He basically did movies at one point in time, especially in the late 70s and early 80s, for paychecks, for vacations. And he talks about it. He goes, that was a terrible movie, but I did it for a paycheck. I did it for a free vacation to Antigua. And you can tell that's what he was doing. So to me, Jeremy Pivens his career must be in the crapper because he took the check for this movie. And I've already told people for PW2, I'm going to call him back up and give him a bigger role because I can only assume that he took this role because he needs money, which means he's going to fucking talk to anybody. So which means probably more likely he's going to talk to me. We have Halloween coming up. I used to live in New Jersey, not too far from Grover's Mill Pond. And Grover's Mill Pond, of course, was the setting for War of the Worlds, the Orson Welles broadcast in the 40s, which caused mass panic about an alien invasion. And it was funny because you hear the stories that people didn't know it was just a radio broadcast. It was just drama. And especially the people in Grover's Mills, they talk about how they went out with their shotguns, and there still is, I believe, the famous tower that people saw, and they've probably seen this tower a million times, but they went out and started shooting at the tower, at the windmill tower in Grover's Mill. And that was a story and speculation for years whether it was more of a government cover-up. Oh, everything's a government cover. Listen, I'm not a guy into conspiracy theories. My wife is. I got a lot of friends are. But, they all said that the Orson Welles broadcast was a government cover-up from an actual alien invasion. Well, now there's a popular app that reports UFOs and records their sightings. Now, evidently, they have recorded thousands of sightings of unidentified submersible objects, or USOs, near U.S. waterways. A phenomenon which now has high-ranking naval officials could warn a threat to national security. Now, we had the drones in New Jersey that we didn't know what they were, and we speculated, and there was so much drama behind it, but then it turned out just recently a company came out and said, yeah, we were secretly testing drones. So there was no conspiracy there. But now the U.S. government's come out and saying, oh, no, there are these underwater drones. There's this phenomenon. Phenomenon. So reportedly, this app claims they received over 30,000 unidentified flying objects and unidentified anomaly phenomenons since it launched in 2022. But the sightings haven't been just limited to the skies. Oh, no. With reports coming in about strange objects rising from the depths of the sea or plunging into water without making even a splash. And I'm watching this map, and I'm like, and they have all these thousands of sightings. There was 386 of these OSUs in California. There was 306 in Florida. But among the top 3 states, we have the most these are the states that basically, of course, have the most coastline. I just would like to know, how are people seeing these? How are you out? And again, they don't give you any speculation. They don't tell you about it. They just say this. Oh, yeah, it happens. Now, people will talk back in 2019. The USS Omaha recorded a UFO UAP that vanished into the ocean without a trace after buzzing a naval fleet off the coast of San Diego. There's a video. The incident was verified by the Pentagon. And they talked about, of course, how this jeopardized, not the government, but how the UFO enthusiasts, how this jeopardizes U.S. maritime security. It also weakened our relative ignorance about the global ocean. Oh, God. You know what? I've said this once. I've said this before. Aliens are smart. Allegedly. I don't know if they are or not, because I've never met one. But when you live in this world and this type of stupidity, why would an alien, I mean, literally, why would an alien want to come here? They land and go, you know what? Especially if they landed in a No Kings rally, they're going to be like, okay, there's no intelligent life here. Oh, it's just the world we went in. But don't worry, things will get better. And as always, the truth shall always set you free. This is Tim Scott of my law. The Mad Ramblings of a Gen Xer. And I'm out of here.